it's so bright. Hello, full disclosure, I've been sick with the flu for about 2 weeks now. I'm healing, recovering very slowly, and it was quite early in the sickness where I decided, right, I'm going to watch today's story, type up a script about it, which I did, and then I haven't thought about it since. So this could be a repeated Faceless Ones, where it's a story where I forget a lot of things to talk about because I was sick while watching it, and sick while reviewing it. Quite delirious, you know? I don't know when the last time you had like a real bad cold and flu was, but yeah, like my brain fog was so heavy. And I'm just rereading some of the notes I took. I'm like, what? I don't remember this. But I mean, hey, it's a two-parter. I've never heard anyone talk about it anyway, so I can't imagine today's topic is going to be particularly fascinating. But if you choose to sit through this review anyway, I greatly appreciate it. I've barely been able to walk around my tiny shoebox apartment over the last 2 weeks, so I have no idea how I'm going to handle standing up for a couple hours to record, but we shall see. If you know where this is from, you'll understand the connection. Here I was last week thinking I was done with season 20, gearing up for the 5 Doctors, when I noticed there was one more little serial stapled onto the end of the season. Oh well, at least I get to crack open another DVD box set, right? Oh no, wait, I don't, because the frickin' discs won't work due to region restrictions. Damn it. I swear, getting classic Doctor Who DVDs in New Zealand has always been a crapshoot. Whether it was back in the day when they were readily available on shelves, or even now buying them from resellers at stupidly high prices. Sometimes you'll get lucky and they'll work fine, and then other times they just won't. And sometimes from the same set. I am still baffled to this day by the Aztecs, where disc 1 worked and then disc 2 didn't. Anyway, let's wrap this season up, shall we?
We're in the 80s.
The King's Demons is the two-parter conclusion to 1983's season 20. It takes place in the year 1215 and features the 5th Doctor, Turlough, and Tegan. And Chameleon, but we'll get to that later. I'd never seen it before, I'd never heard anybody talk about it before, and if it wasn't clear by now, I didn't even know it existed until I was checking out which versions of the 5 Doctors was in the season 20 Classic Collection box set. I'm like, wait, what the heck is this? I assume that because it's one of those elusive two-parters from the 80s, while also being sandwiched in between the Black Guardian trilogy and the big 20th anniversary special, that people just kind of forget about it. On second thought, I don't want to be sneezing on this in between takes. Can you even tell I've got a cold? I know whenever I'm watching a YouTuber and they say, oh, I'm so sick, you can barely even tell. Maybe I just sound more Kiwi. Where was I? Right, never seen it, never heard about it, never knew about it. But I won't hold that against it. After all, Black Orchid is another two-parter, and I'm quite fond of that one. My least viewed classic Doctor Who review, by the way. Man, maybe people just don't care about two-parters. As soon as the story began, I was immediately like, that's Anthony Ainley. Like, yeah, he's obviously the master in disguise, but straight away I'm like, that is him, not his best disguise attempt. After that brief distraction, I was impressed and sort of caught off guard by just how many extras in full costumes they had running around and the whole jousting match set up. All this effort that was clearly being put on display, and for what? A serial that nobody talks about? I know it's far too soon to judge, but I don't know, I guess I just went into this with too low of an expectation. For all the reasons I mentioned earlier, I just kind of expected this to be a nothing throwaway story. But for nothing else, I guess this just goes to show that even the least impressive Doctor Who serial will still have elements worth championing. Maybe one day when I revisit them, I'll find something to treasure about the mutants or the Crusade. Speaking of the Crusade, the plot takes place the day before the signing of the Magna Carta, which, to give this serial massive credit, I knew nothing about beforehand, and then was subsequently educated and learnt a lot about this integral piece of British history. You've got old mate King John acting out of character, at least according to those who know him. He's staying with a host family, you know, one of his liege lords or whatever, and there's a bit of drama going on there. I'd delve deeper into it, but ultimately it ends up being fairly inconsequential. The entire runtime, I couldn't help shake this feeling that this isn't progressing nearly as fast enough, because I know it's only 2 episodes. No call it A plot, B plot, whatever, the whole King John and the real characters and the historical side of things, like that wasn't for me. No, what I got the most out of with this serial were the interactions between the Master and the Fifth Doctor. Which, obviously, yeah, surprise, the King's champion was the Master all along. Who could have seen it coming? Which means that he's managed to find a way to escape from another seemingly inescapable situation yet again. This means we've had the Master show up as the big season finale antagonist 3 seasons in a row now. Logopolis, Time Flight, and now this season. And he's great here. The best he's been so far, in my opinion. Every scene between him and the Doctor was excellent. There's an extended exchange between the two of them in the final episode that was easily the highlight of this story for me. In the end, the entire historical setting that takes up half the plot doesn't really get a conclusion because the TARDIS team just escape at the last minute. I know they've done that before in classic Doctor Who, and like the Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve or the Visitation, where they leave right before the big historical event takes place, but you kind of justify it there because it's like, well, an actual plot has happened and taken place, and then they have left before this big historical event that the viewers mostly know about. Whereas in this case, it was just kind of like, yeah, there is a significant event that happens the day after, but the little plot that was going on and the drama and the conflict just kind of stops because they escape right before the conflict. The conflict that was created for the purpose of this story and not its own unique historical event. Does that make sense? Kind of feels a bit unresolved, but that's understandable given the short runtime. Good thing Tegan could suddenly pilot the TARDIS just fine. Otherwise, they would have been completely screwed. To be fair, I know her and Nyssa somehow managed to pilot the TARDIS once before, but I chalked that up to Nyssa's intellect and insane luck. It's clearly something you're not supposed to notice as a viewer, but in isolation, yeah, it's a bit of a reach. I can completely understand the rational justification of somebody getting incredibly upset that a companion can just push a couple of buttons and somehow manage to pilot the TARDIS, but I'm not thinking about it that deep today. Oh well, I don't really care that much, to be honest. Tegan is such a nothing companion to me at this point. She spends most of the runtime complaining about how cold it is. Which, yeah, authentic Aussie. Crikey, Doctor, it's only 40 degrees, it's bloody freezing. And Turlo, he's certainly there. And maybe he's taking over Nyssa's role of just standing in the background, occasionally being in distress, and then every so often he might actually get something to do. I miss Nyssa. Maybe I'll have to wait until next season to see what kind of companion Turlo will be now that he's freed from the Black Guardian's influence. Because so far, yeah, he hasn't had anything to do. Okay, let's talk about Chameleon. In a bizarre plot point, it turns out King John's been acting weird because he's not the real King John, obviously. He's a robot who is sentient, but is also easily manipulated by mental energy. In other words, if you think about it hard enough, he will adopt whatever form you choose, and then adopt their mannerisms, and essentially do your bidding. Okay. Just a completely rambling example, I'm guessing if you mentally picture Ronald McDonald, he will change into Ronald McDonald. But in your mind, if Ronald McDonald is a mustache-twirling evil supervillain who loves the banjo, Chameleon will look like Ronald McDonald, but he'll be like, "Mwahaha, grimace shake," and start playing the bit. Does that make sense? So, like, it's your mental energy that can control him. So he still has his own sentience and could do things, but like, if you choose to imbue him with good, he could be good. If you choose to imbue him with evil, he'll be evil. So he's like a blank slate, but also sentient. It's AI, literally AI. You're picturing an evil Ronald McDonald playing the banjo, aren't you? One of the few things I already knew coming into this was that Chameleon was essentially a failed experiment by the production team. However, until last week, I had no idea he was being introduced in this season. Long story short, for anyone who doesn't already know, but Chameleon is an actual physical human-sized prop. Not a guy in a suit. An actual bulky, goofy-looking, unwielding thing that never quite worked right. Apparently, word is, series producer John Nathan Turner wanted to recreate the success and charm of K9, or something like that, but went a bit too far, and Chameleon was the result, and the technology just was not there at the time. As a result, despite being introduced as a fully fledged companion here, he apparently just disappears from subsequent serials, aside from the odd cameo, before ultimately getting written out of the show. Keep that in mind, that over the next few serials, there's this freaky looking robot guy just chilling off screen in the TARDIS the whole time. That's going to blow my mind next week, because, spoiler alert, I watched the Five Doctors so many times back in the day, and to think that Chameleon is just on the TARDIS the whole time, it's... What can I even say about Chameleon? Well, he's creepy, unsettling, uncanny, absolutely, completely, downright f***ing terrifying. Isn't that going to give you nightmares? Forget hiding behind the sofa from the Daleks. I'm fearing for my life because of Chameleon. Ugh. The story ends with the Doctor having a half-hearted sook at Tegan, threatening to take her home, which honestly, at this point, I've given up trying to keep track of whether or not Tegan wants to stay or go. If I recall correctly, since the Doctor regenerated, she wanted to go back to her old life, until she didn't, and then she accidentally got left behind for one whole episode before rejoining. Now she's apparently adamant that she wants to keep travelling with the Doctor. Oh, whatever, Tegan. I kinda want to address the Doctor for a second. Last week, I noticed the Fifth Doctor's tendency to avoid explanations. I'll explain later. Well, I've also noticed that from time to time, seemingly at random, he'll get really snippy and sort of, I don't know, tell off his companions? Like a tantrum or something. Again, I don't know, but it seems weird. It's like this incarnation is still capable of being a dick to his companions, but unlike the first and fourth Doctors, it comes across as insincere. William Hartnell and Tom Baker pulled it off convincingly because they were grumpy buggers, whereas Peter Davison feels like he's just reading lines. Forgive me for repeating myself and reusing phrases like I feel like or it seems like. I'm still trying to nail down my subjective thoughts on the Fifth Doctor, and I think that's just one way of me putting it. Davison's performance often lacks emotion, or is subtle to the point where it comes across as a default line read. A rehearsal take, if you will. I don't know, I'm rambling again, but we are at the end of his second season as the Doctor, and I still keep having these moments where I'm like, who are you? What kind of Doctor are you? And I'm going to keep rambling for a moment, because there's something about him. I don't want to be mean and say he's milquetoast bland, but he just seems to be lacking this thing where I can point to and be like, yeah, that's him, that's the Doctor right there. He just seems to have this generic white boy charisma, like, yes, I'm conventionally attractive, hello, you know, that kind of thing. Whereas the first four, there was something about them, something subtle. I still can't put my finger on it, whether it was like a suave gusto or like, yeah, had the manic energy of the second Doctor, or the mystery and allure of the first. And even the third and fourth still had that mystery to them, but they had this way about them, their performance, where you looked at them and it wasn't necessarily quirky, but it wasn't normal either. There was something you could point to, and it's just lacking in Peter Davison's performance. And I feel mean saying that, but when I think about the first four Doctors, each one of them, I'm like, yeah, that is Doctor Who. And when I think about the Fifth Doctor from time to time, I'm like, here's a guy in his late 20s or early 30s, I can't remember, who wears a cricket outfit and calls himself the Doctor, and he has some cool stories and stuff, but aside from that, there's nothing in my mind I point to and say, that is the Doctor. Ramble over. Alright, final thoughts. Harmless. Inessential. Of course, if you know me well enough, you know there's some material that I'm not too keen on, but it was too short to bother me. I imagine I'll forget about it quickly, because next I get to move on to one of the greatest, the best, one of the most iconic stories in Doctor Who history. I really hope that's still the case and it hasn't been retroactively reassessed as an overhyped fan service thing. The 50th and 60th anniversaries are still great, let people have fun. The celebration of 20 years of the show. Tune in next time when I review The Five Doctors. Thank you so much for watching. My voice is almost gone. Odds are this video is not going to get many views because it's only a two-parter, but that's alright. I'm just excited to watch The Five Doctors again. Might be a bit of a wait on that review because I'm still sick and I've probably got a lot to say about it. Sorry for having the game run idle in the background. Screw trophies that require multiple hours of gameplay to unlock.